welcome to the Consulting and Strategy Club of IMI New Delhi. We present before you the first episode of Campus to Corporate. Today we will have with us Mr. Iman Sadhu, an alumnus from ISB Hyderabad who is currently working as a product manager at Indigi. Prior to that, he has a diversified corporate experience with companies like EY and Strategy Co Global. He has also volunteered in All Hands and Hearts as an earthquake relief volunteer in Nepal. He has vast domain knowledge in fintech, IT and data security, government and public sector, energy markets, FMCG, retails, and facility management. He specializes in product sales and user acquisition and believes in putting the customer at the center of all that he does. We are grateful to you for sparing your precious time from your busy schedule to help the students prepare for the transition from campus to corporate. We welcome you.
Thank you so much, Shalini. Now that you read my description, I think I have to change my LinkedIn profile. It's a little too obnoxious, I guess, now that I hear it from another person.
Oh, no. We had such an amazing time looking at your profile. We were in awe of your profile. We were like, you know anything and everything about it. There's so much to learn from you.
Well, I think, that's nothing so special, right? I think just, I think in my profile, you would find keywords from a lot of diverse industries just because I've worked in consulting for around 5 years, right? As a result, moving around industries, but otherwise, I would not be what I would be calling a subject matter expert in all of the fields that I've worked in, but I know a little bit in each of the fields since I've worked in engagements for different industries. So, yeah.
That's really amazing, and I think our listeners are going to benefit from that alone. We actually wanted to ask you about that. How did you manage to grasp so many concepts and so many different, so many diverse fields? Mm-hmm. How were you able to diversify? Like, I'm sure in MBA you must have had a specialization or two, and then you diversified yourself.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. My MBA from ISB, I was not part of their PGP program, which is the 1 year's on-campus course. I was part of their executive MBA program, which is their 2 years on-campus course, but it's spread around 2 years, right? So the viewers should be, I guess, aware of that. And apart from that, ISB really did not help me diversify since when I was doing my degree was sponsored by my ex-employer EY, right? So I was still working with EY at that time, and EY was sponsoring my executive MBA. So what helped me diversify, I would guess, is the nature of consulting that I worked in. So I started working out of in Bangalore, but that time I was a tech guy. So I started working out as a software engineer. I did that job for around 2 years for an insurance domain. But then I kind of wanted to move into client-facing consulting. So I moved to Delhi, and that's where my life became hell, right? And just to, I guess, to make sense, consulting, I would divide it into two parts, right? There is, in India, the majority of consulting that these big fours like EY, KPMG, Deloitte, whoever it is, they will maximum do all the implementation consulting, what we call it, right? Basically, a strategy has been decided and probably by some other person, and these companies are roped in to implement that strategy, right? So that's one kind of consulting, and that was what I was majorly involved in till I was working in EY. So, and post that, I was involved in the strategy consulting part, right? Where you're the first person to look at the problem, and then you come up with a strategy which makes you solve the problem, right? So that is strategy consulting. So there are two types of consulting. In India, the majority of the work done is implementation consulting, because most of the strategy consulting is done by BCG, McKinsey, or Boston Consulting Group, right? So these are the folks who mainly do the strategy consulting. All the big fours do the implementation consulting. I mean, I have worked in consulting industry, and this is just my viewpoint, and doesn't the entire industry, how it works, how it approaches, the linear approach that they take to solving all kinds of problems is not feasible in the complex world that we live in, right? I personally feel that all consultants working at a consulting company are redundant, right? Because in a way, right now, the world, our world needs problem guided by machine guided insight, which can take in a lot of data, a lot of complex data, do all the all the modeling, all the calculations, and give us actual insights that a customer will use. Insights driven by us on Excel, doing linear mapping, or it just doesn't get us there. You may get short-term solutions, but long-term, it's not feasible anymore in our complex world. So in a way, I feel that consulting does not achieve any of them. Implementation consulting specifically, strategy consulting, right now we are going through a lot. We are seeing the industry move through a lot of changes. We are seeing that the industry is accepting machine guided insights into their day-to-day practice, right? uh,
Mhm.
so that is somewhere where we are all heading, right? And that is yeah, that's pretty much it. That was my rant about consulting. I'll stop now.
No, that makes complete sense actually, when now that I think about it. So I'll not, go there because I see it's a touchy subject. I'll ask you our
Not
next
really.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the students are gearing up for the summer internships and corporate interactions. How do you suggest that they can make the most out of these opportunities?
Yeah, I would say the biggest way that like the biggest ROI that you can get from these events is the networking part, right? So what I would suggest students for in during this event is just focus on your networking. If you know the type of people that are coming in, just read up about their industries, just read about what they do, and try to make an impression. Those initial impression might land you a job later.
Yeah, definitely. But don't you think with the pandemic and everything going virtual, networking has become a little difficult?
Yes, virtual networking has become a little difficult in the sense that you mean that approaching people is a little more harder now since you
Yes.
can't see them in
Yes.
person. Yeah, so for that you just, I know that's true, but for that you just have to make your pitch more attractive, right? So if you offer him something that he can't refuse, he will reply back to your message or your call or LinkedIn message, whatever. So you just have to make sure whatever you're offering him in the starting line when you're starting the conversation is what catches his attention. So for example, if this Ratan Tata in the event that you're going, and you say that I can reduce your steel manufacturing wastage by 75% in 3 quarters, something he will be definitely interested in, right? Just an example, hypothetical
Yeah,
example. So
definitely.
this is how you can approach I still know the success of, still even if you write a really good catchy message to someone you are trying to network to, still doesn't, you still might not get noticed, but the chances of you getting noticed are more if the content you send out is actually on point.
Yeah, definitely. That actually helps. I'm sure people will actually use that going ahead. So coming to our next question.
Mhm.
I definitely know that you have struck a beautiful balance between your hobbies, co-curriculars, and your corporate responsibilities, and so early on in your life. People take years
Mhm.
to, like perfect the skill, and you've already done that.
Mhm.
And I've seen that a lot of people initially, when they get into corporate, they burn themselves out within a year or two. What would your
Mhm.
advice be to our listeners on taking a
Mhm.
holistic approach to personality development early on in their careers?
Mm, well, well, the answer to that would be different for the different industries that everyone will be working in, right? But if I were to take a general stab at the question, what I would say is that um, there are two very important facts involved in work-life balance as far I feel. One is you, and the other is your employer, right? So I'll
Mhm.
first talk about the employer. Whenever, so it's very important whenever you join any team or any organization, you just don't finish your interview at the HR level. Ask to speak to your managers, ask to speak to people you'll be reporting to, ask to speak to your teammates. It's very important you get to know how a team is, because your demands for your demand for work life balance will be supplied by your employer half, right? So there's a demand and
Yeah.
supply there, and they have to match. Okay, so that's
Yes.
first part of the issue, where you have to understand, is your employer willing to give you the work life balance? Most cases, no, in India, but things are changing, right? Things are changing, and some employers are saying yes. So that's number one. Find an employer who is willing to give you the work life balance. If that is your priority, if that is not your priority, many employers do not give you work life balance, and if you're okay with that, that's fine. But most importantly, find an employer who allows you to do work life balance. That's most important, because otherwise you'll just be fighting with your employer. Makes no sense. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's one. The second part is you as an individual. So if your priorities are that you are going to work just 9 to 6 or even 10 to 6, whatever, 10 to 6, and you're not going to do anything over and above, and you're happy with a 3-star rating and all those corporate things, fine, be cool with it. Be cool with it. It's just a trade-off. You want work-life balance, expect the company to do less things for you, and you should be fine with that, because you're getting work-life, but don't expect a rating. Don't expect big bonuses, because you have chosen work-life balance. That's sad, but that's how India is realistically. You don't get both work-life balance and good ratings and good bonuses in the same package always in India, right? So you have to be realistic about that. So priorities of the individual, I would say, if he or she is looking for work-life balance, he or she has to be realistic in his or her expectations on what they want out of the company, and on the side, the employer. Choose your employer very carefully. Talk to your reporting managers, talk to the people who you'll be working with. Try to find out how they are. Very important. And this I learned from my ex-boss, basically from where I'm working at Indigene. Whenever we were adding someone to the product team, he would, as part of the interview process, ask that applicant to talk to us without any intervention from him. And he used to tell us, give her all open closet. There is no skeletons in the closet, because the person joining the team should know what he or she is coming in for. There should not be any mismatch of expectation.
Yeah.
Things like this really help when you're joining a job. So I would, even if they don't give it, ask for it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's actually very helpful. I know I struggled through this many times, and this actually brings me some direction that I can do this going ahead. I'm pretty sure that the session can go on and on for hours. However, due to time constraints, we'll have to conclude this discussion. I'd like to thank you once again for enlightening our listeners with snapshots from your own experiences and helping them in their journey from campus to corporate. Thank you.
No, thank you, Shalini. Thanks, Aditya. Thank you, guys.